All right, y'all. So at this point, I have worked my straps. I have them on scrap yarn now, and now I am ready to work my neckline trim. So you're going to be working your neckline trim horizontally across your neckline, and you're going to start by picking up 10 stitches along the inside of your right strap in between the stitch markers that you placed. After we pick up those 10 stitches, we're going to put our neckline stitches onto our needle along with those 10 stitches that we picked up in knit. So I'm going to grab my needle. This is my main body needle, and I'm going to grab my yarn. So I'm going to be looking at the right side and at my right strap, and I'm going to be picking up and knitting 10 stitches in between these two stitch markers. So I'm going to start at the neckline, and as you can see, we've got a really nice selvage edge to be able to pick up stitches from. So you can see this is the first stitch that I'm going to be picking up behind, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a 6-inch tail, and I am going to go behind both legs of that first stitch that I marked. I'm going to hook my yarn and pull a stitch through. Okay, so that's my first stitch that I'm picking up. You may want to remove this stitch marker now because it might get in the way. It's definitely getting in the way for me. So I'm going to remove that stitch marker. All right, so I've picked up my first stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to go one stitch up. You'll see there's a nice little opening to pick up and knit your second stitch. Now, I like to make sure that my first few stitches stay taut, so I'm going to hold on to that tail. I'm going to move up to the next stitch, and I'm going to pick up another stitch. I'm going to go one stitch over. You can see if you pull apart that last selvage edge, you see the laddering that you're going to be picking up into. So each one of these holes is where I'm going to be picking up and knitting a stitch. So go to the next one. Next one. I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. Here is 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And that lines up perfectly with that last stitch marker, so I can go ahead and remove that. Okay, so I've picked up and knit 10 stitches along the inside of my right strap. Now, if you remember, we have to get these neckline stitches onto your needle. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that needle up, and then I'm just going to slip all these stitches onto this needle so they line up next to my newly picked up and knit stitches. Okay, so I have now picked up my 10 stitches, and I've put my neckline stitches back on my needles, and I am going to now start my 2-row repeat. So each 2-row repeat is going to decrease your active neckline stitches by 2 stitches. When you get down to this 10th stitch, you're going to work it with the first active neckline stitch. And then when you turn your work to go back the other way, you'll work the next active neckline stitch once again together with that 10th stitch. And eventually, you'll work all of these active neckline stitches, and all you'll have left is your 10 trim stitches. So to do my first row, I'm going to be looking at the wrong side of my garment. My working yarn is over here. And I am going to first slip 2 stitches with my yarn held at the front of the work, like so. And you want to keep these first slip stitches pretty taut. Slip 1, slip 2. Now I'm going to purl 1, knit 1, purl 2, knit 1, purl 2. Usually when I get to this point, I like to hold the yarn tail so that that last stitch stays taut. Okay, so now this is where I'm going to work these 2 stitches together. And on row 1, I'm going to knit these 2 stitches together through the back loops, like so. Now I'm going to keep my yarn at the back of the work, and I'm going to slip 1 stitch purlwise before then turning my work. All right, so now I'm on row 2. The first thing I'm going to do is work this active neckline stitch with my first trim stitch. So to do that, I'm going to purl these 2 stitches together through the back loop. Like so. Then I'm going to knit 2, purl 1, knit 2, purl 1, and knit 3. Okay. Okay, so I worked 1 repeat of that 2-row repeat. Now I'm going to continue in this fashion until I have just 10 stitches left. So I'll show you that one more time. Going back to a row 1, I'm on the wrong side. I'm going to slip 2 with yarn in front of my work. Purl 1, knit 1, knit 1, purl 2, knit 2 together through the back loop. Slip 1 stitch purlwise with yarn in back of work. Turn your work. Purl 2 together through the back loop. Knit 2, purl 1, knit 2, purl 1, knit 3. All right, so I'm going to keep working like this until I have just 10 stitches left on my needle. I'll meet you on the other side. All right, y'all, I just finished my neckline trim. All I have left is 10 stitches, and now I need to graft these stitches to my left strap. So to do this, we're going to do a combination of Kitchener stitch and mattress stitch. We'll be using Kitchener stitch for the stitches that are on your needle and mattress stitch for the stitches along the selvage of this left strap. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my darning needle. So I grabbed my darning needle and I'm going to thread the tail of my neckline trim stitches onto my needle. Okay, and now you're going to be grafting from this end to this end. And you're going to be using these stitch markers as a guide of where to start and end. So the first thing that you have to do, I'm going to go ahead and pick up my project. All right. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my needle knitwise into this first stitch, but I'm going to leave that stitch on the needle. Go like that. Then I'm going to go to that stitch marker that I placed, and I am going to insert my needle behind both legs of that stitch. After you do that, you may want to remove that stitch marker if it gets in the way. So now I am going to go one stitch over on my strap, and I am going to go down through. So here's where I came up through. I'm going to go one stitch over right there. And I'm going to go behind both legs of that stitch. Now I'm going to thread my needle purlwise through that first stitch. I'm going to pull my yarn through and I'm going to slip that stitch off the needle then. So now, once again, we'll go knitwise into this first stitch. We're going to pull our yarn through but leave it on the needle. Now we're going to find the stitch that we just came down behind, and we're going to go up through that stitch. Like so. We're going to go one stitch over and come down behind that stitch. So you'll see this is one stitch over right there. We're going to go behind both legs of that stitch, like so. We're going to go back to our needle and go purlwise into that first stitch and slip it off. All right, knitwise into the first stitch, leaving the stitch on the needle. We're going to go up behind the legs of the stitch we just came down through, so you'll see it right there. So I'm going to go up. I'm going to go one stitch over, so you'll see one over is right here. We're going to go down behind both legs of that stitch, like so. Then we're going to come back to our needle, insert our darning needle purlwise, pull our yarn through and slip that stitch off. Knitwise, leave the stitch on. Behind the legs of the stitch you just came out of, behind the legs, up behind the legs of the stitch you just came out of, like so. Gonna go one stitch over, and go down behind both legs of that stitch right there. And we're going to come purlwise, slipping that stitch off and pulling our yarn through. So we continue in this fashion until all of our stitches are grafted. I'll meet you on the other side. Okay, so I have finished now grafting this. So all I have to do is pull that taut. And if you look at the other side, it's a really nice clean join. And there it is. So that's how you do the neckline trim.